If you, oh, you need something. You can put it on me if you want. Anyway, we start. Good. Live. You're on.
You have to read.
Okay, so do you occasionally still speak German?
Not too often. Once in a while, you know, I speak German, but most is English, you know. Everything is English because the kids went to school here. My kids were born in Europe. I have 3 children and they were born in Europe, in Belgium. So when we came here, we spoke German and my wife spoke French with the kids. But when they started school, everything was gone. They started English and that became the language.
And you too, don't you speak any more German?
Oh yes, I understand. I read German.
So then wir können das auf Deutsch machen.
No. English.
But do you prefer to speak with me now in German or in English?
With you there is no difference. Whatever you like. I speak with you however you like.
Where were you born?
I was born in Vienna.
What year?
1920. In February of 1920. I will turn 80 come February.
Well, you don't look so old. Please tell me a little bit. Were you really born in Vienna?
I was born in Vienna in the 2nd district and we lived there until I was 6 years old. Then we moved to the 3rd district. There I went to school until age 14 and then we moved again to the 2nd district. Another flat but in the same district. And I was in Vienna until 1938, until Hitler came. Hitler came to Vienna in March 1938, and we left Vienna in June 1938 for Belgium. Because we waren keine Drogen.
Forget the German, just English. Go to the next one, I forgot to take it out.
Even I am born in Vienna. My father was born in Vienna, but we were Czech citizens.
Was it hard to get an Austrian passport or the Austrian citizenship?
Well, it costed a lot of money to get a citizenship because my great-grandfather was born citizen in Vienna. My father was already over 21 years old, therefore he remained a Czech citizen. Even he is born in Vienna. So, but then our passport was good. With our passport, we were able to travel without a visa in Belgium, France, England, Switzerland, all over Europe, without visa, without passport. But with my eldest daughter, her fiancé was in Belgium. So we only wanted to go to Belgium, so the entire family, we didn't want to split up the family. So we all went to Belgium. But then when Hitler came to Belgium, in 1940, our passports weren't good anymore because in 1993, Hitler took Czechoslovakia, so our passport was no more good. We couldn't go anywhere. Then, in 1942, two of my entire family was deported to Auschwitz. I had 6 sisters and 2 brothers, and I married also for the first time. I got married very young. I was 21 when I got married, and all perished in the concentration camp. I am the only one who returned. I was from 1942 to 1945, Auschwitz, Buchenwald. And then I was liberated in Restagee by the Russians. The Russians liberated me in that camp, yes. And then I returned to Belgium, but nobody from my family returned. So I was staying by my uncle of my first wife, and they wanted me to stay with them. They didn't want me to live somewhere else. So I lived with them for a while. And they also had a daughter. It was a cousin of my first wife. My wife didn't come back, and a year later, we got married.
No more.
Yeah,
Now it
that's
starts.
enough.
Really? Why?
Anybody else?
Maybe he will. Yeah, he'll read. Perfect. But you can stay. Yeah.
Do you want to explain?
No. Yes. We're reading the story
Okay, I
of.
can sit on the
Yes, of course.
No, you want to sit?
I don't mind.
Are you still reading?
You can do the.
No. Now you read. You read.
From here, I read all I read.
Okay, good.
Okay.
You are standing.
Perfect. A cousin of my first wife, No, and to her I was married 47 and a half years. And today, the day you interview me, it is exactly 6 years that my wife is buried. She died on Christmas Eve. It was also a Friday. Like this year, and on a Sunday we buried her. From today, 6 years ago, that was when we buried her. Isn't it? And the concentration camp, I survived it partly because I was always a volunteer in the concentration camp. Now too, I volunteer very much because I am retired for so long. So I volunteer very much. But I always volunteered in the concentration camp. For instance, we had to work 6 days, and on the 7th day we were off, we were free. In the camp there was always something to do. Cleaning, beautifying, like they say, planting flowers, and so on. And when they asked who wants to volunteer, I was always one of the first who volunteered. So other people asked me whether I'm an idiot for volunteering, for the Nazi on my day off when I could have relaxed. I answered, no, I volunteer for my life, because it helped me a lot. First, when we finished with our work, for instance, he took 20 people. When we were finished with our work, he went to the kitchen and brought out soup for us. For 20 people, he brought out 50 liters of soup. So we all received 2.5 liters of soup extra. That was more than our regular ration, and they also served us bread, and we had a good reputation with the capo, with the block eldest. A good reputation. For instance, once we were, that happened several times on a construction site. I worked on construction, you know. I constructed buildings, and later I worked in the coal mine 36 meters underground. But when we worked at the construction site once, we had to unload a track of sand to make cement. The capo said, finish it within an hour. If the job is not done within an hour, you'll get punished very hard. All right, so we all started to work, but the sand was frozen and we were unable to shovel it. Now we have to use a shovel to work the ice, but it is very hard to use a shovel as a hoe. An hour later, he, the capo, returned again, and we, for instance, that was a car. The narrator shows, imagine a car, probably shouldn't, supposed to say that, it's directions. He told the first person, bend over, and he lashed him with a heavy rubber hose that was behind. He, the co-prisoner, was not able to sit for days, suffering from the pain. And Capo called the second, the same punishment. Now it was my turn. Come here. I bent, I spoke German to him, and I said, Mr. Capo, you know, I'm always a volunteer during all of my days off. When there was need for a volunteer, I was always the first to go. He says, all right, you can go. And he did not beat me. And this happened repeatedly. So, hence, I was never beaten in the camp, because to volunteer has helped me a lot.
Okay, where?
We did enough, I think.
Okay, would it have helped if you had mentioned that the sand was frozen?
Yes, in that case. So in this case, because he saw the sand was frozen, he passed us a hoe and we pick. He also gave us a few more people on the car and we emptied the load of frozen sand. But the volunteering, because I was always volunteering, he did not beat me. But that has happened often, you know.
And who was the couple?
The capo was a German, also a prisoner, but he was in the concentration camp because he was a Nazi. He hated Jews, but he was in the camp because he ran away from the front line. He ran away from the front, so they caught him. But they, the Germans, when they were there in the camp, they immediately got a great job. They watched us Jews, you know.
And German Jews. Were there differences where they were Austrian or came from Germany?
No, that made no difference. No.
And what happened to your colleagues from that period? For example, those who worked with you there.
Yes, we then, for instance, we were on a side camp of the main camp of Auschwitz. 8 kilometers away, that was the coal mine. And in 1945, in January, the Russians came and we were deported to Buchenwald.
And that march, those were these famous death marches, wasn't it?
Yes, on a train and partially we had to march. We were transported from Auschwitz to Buchenwald, and in Buchenwald we stayed until April. The concentration camp Buchenwald was located in Germany and was liberated in April by the US Army. I do not know who liberated Buchenwald, whether the English or the Americans, but just before they came, when they came to liberate, we were again deported or evacuated to Theresienstadt, Czechoslovakia. There they wanted to kill us, all of us. But there was not time anymore. The Russians arrived. Therefore, they had no time to kill us in 1945, in May, in Theresienstadt, Czechoslovakia, today's Czech Republic, you know.
And in Auschwitz, it was Auschwitz was a so-called extermination camp.
Yeah, please, yeah. It's, yeah, thank you.
Yes, the main camp. The main camp was, for instance, okay, I'm going to tell you now a small story from Auschwitz. It was far into the beginning of 1942. One evening we returned from work. I didn't feel very good. I was sick. I was scared to go to the hospital because when you're sick for a few days, they send you back to the main camp. Auschwitz, you know, and you were done. Nothing was heard from you ever again. So I was afraid to enter the hospital. But in the morning, when we lined up for work, I was unable to stand on my feet. And I still had a nephew who was also sent away. He was not yet with me in the camp, and another man. They kept me back, hence I entered the hospital. They told me in the hospital, "Sorry, we are unable to do something for you. You are already asked to work. You have to go to work. But in the evening, when you return, you can enter the hospital." That was before something, before I became sick. We went to work for a day, and I had a new leather belt. That was at the beginning when we arrived to Auschwitz. And there was a German soldier. He walked next to us and approached me saying, "I want your belt. This belt. But tomorrow I'll bring you another." But even if he wouldn't have said, "I'll bring you another one," he wants the belt, so I gave him the belt. So, the next day, I didn't see him. Another day, I didn't see him. After a few days, he returned again. He came to me, hands me a belt, a narrow one, and so he kept his word and gave me a piece of bread. Now I have a friend here. He kept his word. After a few days, we went again to work, and I suffered diarrhea. Do you know what this is? I had to go, so what can you do? So here's my soldier. I knew him. So I walked over to him, I went to him and told him. So he gave the order to the entire company short step, and he walked with me into the field and let me go. After a few days now, when I was so sick, we had to go to work and we had to work. In the beginning, there were soldiers with us wherever we worked. Later, they fenced the entire workplace with electric wires, and the guards were on watchtowers. But in the beginning, the soldiers were next to us, and we worked in coal mines in the gardens. It was so cold during winter time in December of 1942. It was negative 42 centigrade approximately, which is minus 43.6 Fahrenheit. Snow was high in Poland, and it was very cold. For the guards, they had these lorries where you dig coal up. And they had arranged it in a way where you could make a fire in front of them so it wasn't too cold to work. So my nephew and the others, they took me to get to work, but I was unable to stand on my feet. My guard again, the soldier, is sitting by the fire, So I went to him and told him, I am sick, I am unable to stand on my feet. The soldier left his position and let me sit all day near the campfire. He was standing next to me. When I returned to the camp, I went to the hospital. I had double pneumonia and a 42-degree fever, 107.6 Fahrenheit. Above 42 centigrades, the highest on the thermometer. You know, so had this guard not offered me his seat at the fireplace, I would not have survived that day in the cold. And here's another thing. When I was in the hospital, I had a doctor. His name was Dr. Robert, a Czechoslovakia doctor, a Jew. He was a prisoner, and he approached me saying, Frankfurter, there is nothing that I can do for you. We have no medicines, there is nothing. I will try a thing though. You will live or you will die. If I don't try it, you'll die anyway, so I'm going to try it. Maybe it'll help. And he took sheets. It was put into the cold water. It was neither hot nor wet, but room temperature. He wrapped me from head to foot and let me lie there overnight in that state. The next day, my fever dropped from 42 degrees centigrade to 37 degrees. The fever had decreased so much. Had there not been this doctor nor the soldier, I would not have survived, you know? And yet another thing. Now I have spent a few days in the hospital. Maybe when you spend 8 days in the hospital, they came from the main camp, Auschwitz, and they took you all the way out and sent you away to the main camp. And they went, pointing his finger up in the sky, so that you would not hear from them anymore. And they came, and we were 10 people in the room. They took all and let me lie in the bed. The doctor just must have tried something of a saying when he helped me survive. Yes, thus I survived the concentration camp.
Were you also in the main camp?
When we arrived in Auschwitz, we were at the main camp. There we got the numbers. In the main camp, we got numbers. This is my number, 72461. That was the main camp. I was 1 week at the main camp, and then we were separated into diverse sub-camps. I came to the camp that was 8 kilometers away from the main camp. It was called Jawichowicz, a sub-camp located in the village of Jawisowich. Those were the coal mines. In the beginning, we had constructed an electrical power station for the coal mines, and then I worked in the coal mine. First, I worked on the construction site, and then I worked at the coal mine. And in Buchenwald, I have worked in the quarry. We've made a tunnel through the mountain. We have this, the prisoners have that duty. And with the electrical drill drilling the holes, the Germans blew it out with dynamite, and we built a tunnel through the mountains.
How was the departure to Auschwitz?
From where?
I think from Belgium. Did you know where you will go, or how was it?
When we arrived, I was the first in an organization there in France, in Calais. And then we were sent to Belgium, via Belgium to Auschwitz.
Were there French Nazis or Nazis in France?
No, these were Germans, all the Germans. We were about 2 weeks on the way. I do not know it exactly. I can't remember how long we were on our way.
But did you know where it was going?
No. In the beginning, no. When we arrived in Auschwitz, we knew where we were, though.
Was it already known?
Auschwitz? Absolutely. And then we arrived. At that point, they took elderly people to one side, and children on the other, and the young people. They were able to work on another side. Then we understood what was going on.
At that moment, were you still with your family?
No, my family my sister and my parents were deported first before I was deported. But on that train, I have had my wife and my 3 sisters.
Were you able on the train?
Were we together on the train? Till Auschwitz, we were together, yes.
What kind of train was this?
A normal train, you know, like a coach train. Only in a cattle wagon, we were transported. When we were evacuated from Auschwitz, from one camp to another, then we were in an open cattle wagon, you know. When we went from France to Auschwitz, we were in a passenger train.
how was it at the time? You arrived in Auschwitz with your wife?
Yes, women they had then sorted apart, men sorted apart too, elderly people sorted apart, and children too. Thereafter, we never have heard from them.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all, no. We heard nothing at all.
How was that for you?
Very bad, isn't it? And at the main camp, Auschwitz, they took our clothes, everything. They only left us what I said, shoes and the leather belts. They had left that. That was what I still had when I arrived at the sub-camp. And we got the numbers at the main camp and the prison gown, you know, those prison suits.
Were they warm?
No, in the wintertime they were very cold. We had no gloves. And when you took your hands into these iron wagons, they got stuck because they were so frozen. Touching the iron wagons without gloves freezes your hands to them. So we took paper to keep us warm. We took bags of cement, paper, and we have taken our feet wrapped in paper to keep us warm. We made a hole where the head is to dress up in cement bags. For instance, we went out to do work, 25 people and a commander, and 22 returned with frozen hands and frozen feet. Thus it was very cold.
What happened to these people?
No, the hands. Many in the beginning, the people were not sent to the hospital because many new transports have arrived. Hence they were all sent back to Auschwitz, the main camp. Later they took care of them a little bit because less people were arriving. But in the beginning, from all countries in Europe, they were transported there. Does anyone want to take over for me, by chance?
Yeah, I think
Read a bit. You're fantastic.
we have to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oof, my voice is hurting.
No, your voice is getting better.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe change the role the lady wants them. But read a bit. You will see it's not.
Okay, maybe I ask the question?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I will switch again.
Okay.
I love your age.
Where are we?
Does it mean frozen hands returned you to the main camp to be murdered?
Yes, we have never heard from them again. Yes, but when we were liberated from the Secession, the Russians sent us back to the Americans, you know, to Pilsen. And the Americans have returned us to where we came from. People from France, from Belgium, everywhere, yes. The Russians gave us too much to eat. When they liberated us, we were unable to eat. Because we have, for breakfast, they gave us meat, gravy, we were unable to eat. People died from overeating. We had to beg them to give us cereal, you know, that we can eat. So they gave us this. But when they sent us to the Americans gave us nothing to eat. Nothing. Very bad. Die Rassen haben...
You can just skip that, it's in German.
Or just the next sentence you can read.
Why? Why? Because they sold everything on the black market. Instead of giving it to us, they sold everything for money to private people, to people who had money. To private citizens, they sold everything. To us, they gave only a bit of black coffee and a piece of hard bread.
For how long?
Let's see, how long were we in Pilsen? Maybe a week. So we escaped from the American camp. We were also in a camp, have waited for airplane to return us from where we have come from. So we sneaked out from that camp and went to the station in Pilsen. And then the Red Cross, the American Red Cross, they gave us to eat.
Where did you travel to?
From Pilsen we traveled to Metz, France. From Metz back to Belgium, Brussels.
And did you not return to Vienna?
No, I did not go anywhere more to Vienna, no. Because I have lived in Belgium, isn't it?
And you?
Yes, I stayed in Belgium. We were liberated in 1945, and in Belgium I stayed till 1952, till I was able to come to America.
And why did you decide to come to America?
That was our last address, where we were forced to leave everything behind us. Am I missing something?
street me.
Okay. That was our last address. We were forced to leave everything behind. In the 2nd district, that was a street, and that ran from Tobarso to the Prater, you know. I am sure you have heard about Prater in Vienna, famous amusement park. It was there.
Which school did you attend, and which street was your school?
The school was in Kogelgasse in the 3rd district, you know. That was around the corner where we lived. We lived on the same street.
And did you meet with people you knew from those times before?
No.
Did you enter the apartment?
In Vienna, no, but in Belgium, I went to the apartment where my parents lived, but nothing. Only 2 things I have encountered. These were religious things, you know. I will show it to you, what I found.
Was your family a religious family?
Not very religious. We were religious, not very orthodox. We were religious. We kept the holidays and we went to the temple, synagogue, you know. And here I show the word English, what I found in the apartment where my parents lived in Belgium. 2 things remained. This all remained. Should I show it to you? I'm going to bring it. You know what it is? A ramshon, that is what it is. We use that for the high holiday, the New Year on Yom Kippur. You heard about that. That is what it is used for, you know. You know, my great father got it when he married in 1914. So what I know, it is now 86-year-old, but it could be much older, because my father had received it from his father, so I do not know who belonged to his grandfather. Then I had 2 prayer books that I found. You see, this is all I found from my parents in that apartment where they once lived. These are 2 prayer books, you see, in the Jewish language. Now, you can read German, can't you?
Yes.
Go read. What this?
Stories of Israel out of Egypt for the first 2 evenings of the Pesach feast in Deutscher Übersetzung in illustration.
See, that was pre-printed in 1909. So this is 91 years old, the prayer books. So that is the only stuff I found belonging to my parents. That's all that remained.
And what did your parents do for work in Vienna?
My father was in textile, you know. My father worked, my mother had not worked. She was at home.
In the 1st district?
Yes, I worked in the 1st district.
And do you still know which company it was?
No, I can't remember. And my mother has not worked. She has enough work to do with 9 children.
9 children?
Yes, sisters, and 2 brothers, and me, 9 children. We were 9 children. Only cooking food for 11 people every day.
Were you the oldest?
No, 2 elderly sisters. I was the 3rd. I have here pictures from my entire family.
When you were all still together?
Yes, it was in the 1939, before Hitler arrived in Belgium. This is a picture of my sister. An aunt gave me this. She had it in England. I can show it to you.
Yes, we will afterwards. And how has this past occupied you today? Are you still having to think about it a lot?
Yes. Yes, when my wife was still alive, about 6 years ago, she had to always tell me, she had to wake me up every night, because I was screaming, you know, dreaming. She had to wake me up every night, and it was not leaving my head. I cannot forget it. You know, it is, first of all, this is how it is. I remember every birthday of my sisters, my brothers, my wife, of everybody. So when the day comes, oh, today it will be the birthday of my sister, my brother, my wife. So this passes always my head, and we were a big family. And then, for instance, my children, the twins, they were born on the same day. That one of my sister was born on the same day, you know, so you know, yes.
Did you ever travel to Germany?
No, I never was in Germany, no.
Do you get something from these payments?
From Germany. From Germany I get a pension. From Austria I get like here as well as Social Security, not what I was in the camp, but when I worked in Vienna. My boss paid for me and I have paid, for this. I get, but not for the larger, isn't it? That I go get from Germany, yes, it's how it is.
How are your children handling their story?
It's very difficult, For those as well. I made a tape from Spielberg, Also my children all have a tape because from Spielberg, I got one tape, but my son-in-law works in the movie business. So he made me tape for each of them, So all my kids now have already a tape that I made.
How long is that? How long did Spielberg, one of those people you interviewed for the largest archive of the Holocaust survivors in the world, interview you?
The tape is about an hour and a half, yes.
Are they asking about similar things like you?
Yes.
Yes. In English?
Yes, in English.
Did you already repeatedly tell it was your children?
Yes, I have told it to my children. They told it to other kids, for instance, to the synagogue where I belong. The teacher asked if I would like to talk to the kids about it, so I said yes, and I spoke to them. For a few difficult classes, I spoke already about that. I had one kid come up, he was 12 years old. I show you something, what this boy did. I bring it to you, I show it to you. Can I get something to drink?
No, thank you.
You see, that's where a young man here, and the young man, he did this in 1995. He had to make for school, he had to make for school a report. And I show you the last. See what he got?
What a well-written account of a truly heroic life.
And he made some pictures and he gave me this. And he taped this, the whole report. He taped it and then he gave it to me. He printed it and gave it to me. He was, I think, 12 years old, this boy who did this. Also, because I gave in the school, in the synagogue, I was talking, and so the rabbi, you know what a rabbi is? He called me up and asked, there is one young man who would like to come up if I would be able, if I would talk to him. I said, sure. Like I talked to you. I said, sure, we'll talk to him. So he came and he taped this, and then he sent me, he gave me this.
And how is it for you if you met these people like me, like an Austrian, or if you meet younger Germans? How is that for you?
I tell you, I never met another German yet to talk to about that. You are the first one. I only did it, you know why? Because Mr. Fishman asked me. So if he asked me to, that was all right, But otherwise, I never talked to another German about this. I don't have any German here, You come from Austria, and your parents were born in Austria too, isn't it? So you do this for a living?
I do it all right now. All my time is occupied by this work, but I don't really do it for a living.
So from what do you live then?
That's complicated.
So you do it for what is the reason that you do it?
Well, I'm really interested in it, and I want to create some kind of an archive to present it to people. Because I didn't know these details,
May I ask you how old you are?
Yes, I was born in 61.
Oh, a young kid then. Are you married?
Nope.
No. So where you live here?
I live at 107 in Manhattan, 107 on the east.
Oh, yes. I used to work in Manhattan, on Broadway between 37th and 38th Street. First I worked on Broadway on 74th and then on 37th Street.
Did you also read about Shoah, something about his history?
No, I went through it, so I did not have to read about it. About 3 years I went from 42 to 45 in camps. Under Hitler was ready from before. But in camp itself, about maybe 2 months, less than 3 years. So I saw everything, For instance, in Auschwitz, we went to work, and there was a young man, He was from the neighborhood, but he was in camp. And when he walked to work, he disappeared, you know. He disappeared. But after a few days, they found him and they brought him back to camp. He was, I think, 18 years old. And they hung him in front of us. All the camp had to stay in line to watch when they hung him. And then another young man disappeared, and after they brought him back too, he was torn apart from the dogs. You know, they brought him back dead. And they laid him down on the grass, and we had to pass by to see him. We had to pass by to see him. So nobody escaped anymore. Because you couldn't escape, they found you. You know, before we only saw this in movies, when they put the noose around the head, the neck, the hand, but we saw this in real life. And when we were evacuated from one camp to another, and we had to march, and somebody couldn't march and fell down, they just shot them and let them laying there, and that's it. And when we were on the train, these were open trains, when we were evacuated, part on the trains, part walking, every night, everybody, a few people passed away from the cold. No food, you know. So what they did is they took of the few dead ones, the dead ones, and put the last car alive ones on. So the car was always full, but the train got shorter. So many people passed away during the evacuation from one camp to another. So we went this through to real life. What we before only saw in movies, saw and to read. So I did not have to read about it, you know. When I was in California, I went to the museum, you know. But I saw everything in real life. Only other people wanted to, so I went with them. But I saw all that they showed. I saw this in real life, you know. My weight was now, I weigh about 130 pounds. I was much more. But when I was liberated, my weight was about 80 pounds. Could you imagine, 80 pounds?
That's 40 kilograms.
Not yet 40 kilograms.
Less, 38?
Yes.
Did you always believe you would survive this?
No. That I would survive it? No.
Did you ever want to give up?
Life?
Yes. Did you think?
And special when I came back from camp, and nobody came back from my family, you know. My youngest sister was 9 years old when she was deported.
So after liberation then?
After liberation, I did not want to live. I always asked, why came I back? Nobody came back. Why just, you know, me? Yes, you know, 6 sisters, 2 brothers, my wife, my parents. And there is people today here, they say nothing had happened. It never happened. Can you imagine? Yes.
Do you also have many friends who were in the concentration camp?
Not here. Many have passed away, you know.
And did you ever try, you know, to have your number removed?
No. I will never do this. Why should I have it removed? No.
There are people who do that.
Yes, I have no idea why. You know, I don't know why, you know. I don't know. I will never have it removed.
And in the camp, you know, when there were only numbers, did you have a name too?
Number, all by number. In Buchenwald, we also had a number, but I can't remember, you know. I know it was 8 printed, you know, but in Buchenwald, the number, I do not know anymore.
That one wasn't tattooed?
No. In Buchenwald, it was only...
That's near Weimar, isn't it?
Yes, so we were there from the end of January to April. Yeah.
And is there something that you want to say?
No. Only I can show you the picture of my family if you want to see them. There is one picture I have here where my sister got married, so this is my entire family here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I hope you have a good purpose for this, so that it will help you with what you need.
I hope it also has an effect.
Yes.
Many thanks.